Joys of the Soul by Sayyid Qutb. Translation by Muhammad Al-Amrani. In the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful. My beloved sister, these reflections are offered to you. The thought of death still haunts your imagination. You fancy it everywhere, behind everything. You think of it as an overbearing power that overshadows life and the living, and you see life beside it as slight, trembling, and afraid. Yet when I look at this very moment, I see death as nothing but a puny, spent force when set beside the overflowing, surging, all-embracing powers of life. It hardly accomplishes anything save to pick up the crumbs that fall from the table of life, to feed upon them. The teeming tide of life is here, boiling all around me. Everything is moving towards growth, outpouring and blossoming. Mothers conceive and give birth, humans and animals alike. Birds, fish and insects push forth the eggs that burst open into living beings and life. The earth erupts with plants that unfold into blossoms and fruits. The sky pours down rain, and the seas seethe with waves. Everything on this earth is growing, increasing. From time to time, death rushes forth, snatches a bite, and passes on, or else it crouches, waiting to pick up some of the crumbs that fall from the table of life, to feed upon them. Meanwhile, life goes its own way, alive, gushing, effervescent, hardly feeling death or seeing it at all. At times life cries out once in pain when death tears from its body a bite, but the wound soon heals, and the cry of pain soon turns into a song of joy. Then humankind and beast, bird and fish, worm and insect, grass and trees all surge forward to cover the face of the earth with life and living beings, while death sits yonder, taking one bite and moving on, or picking up the crumbs that fall from the table of life to feed upon them. The sun rises and the sun sets. The earth turns round and round around it, and life wells up here and there. Everything tends toward increase in number and in kind, increase in quantity and in quality. If death truly had power, it would halt this flood of life. But it is a frail, ineffectual force when compared with the overflowing, impetuous, enveloping powers of life. Out of the power of God, the ever-living, life issues forth and spreads. When we live for ourselves alone, life seems short and small. It begins where our awareness begins, and it ends with the end of our limited span. But when we live for others, when we live for an idea, life appears long and deep. It begins where humanity began, and it extends beyond our departure from the face of this earth. In such a case, we gain many times our individual lifetime. We gain it in truth, not in illusion. To conceive of life in this way multiplies our sense of our days, our hours, our moments. For life is not measured by years, but by the sum of feelings. And what the so-called realists call in this case an illusion is in reality a truth more valid than all their truths. Life is nothing but a human being's sense of being alive. Strip any person of the awareness of his life, and you strip him of life itself in its true meaning. Whenever a human being feels a doubled awareness of life, he has, in fact, lived a doubled life. To me, the matter seems so self-evident that it needs no argument. We live for ourselves a multiplied life when we live for others. And in proportion as we multiply our feeling for others, we multiply our feeling for our own life, and multiply this life itself in the end. The seed of evil flares up, but the seed of good bears fruit. The first shoots swiftly into the air, yet its roots lie close to the surface of the soil, so that it may even screen from the tree of good the light and the air. But the tree of good persists in its slow growth, for the depth of its roots in the soil compensates it for warmth and air. When we look beyond the gaudy, deceitful appearance of the tree of evil and examine its real strength and firmness, it appears to us feeble, brittle, puffed up without any true solidity, whereas the tree of good endures affliction, stands fast before the storm, and continues its calm, slow growth, paying no heed to the dirt and thorns that the tree of evil may hurl at it. When we touch the good side in people's souls, we find there is much good in them which the eyes may not see at first glance. I have tried it with many, even with those who at first sight seem wicked or poor in feeling. A little compassion for their mistakes and their follies, a touch of genuine affection for them, a measure of unfeigned concern for their interests and their worries, and then the spring of goodness in their souls is revealed to you when they give you their love, their affection, and their trust in return for the little that you have truly and purely given them of yourself. Evil is not so deep-rooted in the human soul as we sometimes imagine. It lies in that hard crust with which people face the struggle of life and survival. Once they attain faith and inner security, that hard crust is cracked open, revealing a sweet and delightful fruit. This sweet fruit discloses itself only to the one who can make people feel secure with him, confident of his affection, sure of his genuine compassion for their struggle and their sorrows, and for their mistakes and follies as well. A little spaciousness of heart at the beginning suffices to bring all this about, much sooner than many would expect. I have tried it myself, so I do not let fly mere winged words born of dreams and delusions. When the seeds of love, compassion, and goodness grow within our souls, we spare ourselves many burdens and hardships. We shall not need to flatter others, for we shall then be honest and sincere when we offer them praise. We shall uncover in their souls treasures of goodness. We shall find for them fine qualities on which we may truthfully bestow our praise. And no human being is without some good side or some fine trait that entitles him to a kind word. Yet we do not become aware of it or see it, except when the seed of love grows in our own hearts. Likewise, we shall not need to burden ourselves with the strain of feeling irritated by them, nor even with the effort of merely being patient with their mistakes and foolishness. When the seed of love grows in our souls, we shall feel compassion for the places of weakness and deficiency in them, and we shall not go about searching for these flaws just to gaze upon them. And naturally, we shall not impose upon ourselves the toil of hating them, or the burden of constant wariness of them. We hate others only because the seed of goodness has not grown enough within us, and we fear them only because we lack that element of trust in goodness. How much tranquility, rest, and happiness we grant ourselves when we grant others our compassion, our love, and our trust. On the day when the seed of love and compassion and goodness grows in our hearts. When we withdraw from people because we feel that we are purer than they in spirit, or kinder of heart, or broader of soul, or more intelligent of mind, we are not doing anything great. We have merely chosen for ourselves the easiest path and the least costly. True greatness is to mix with these people while we are filled with a spirit of forbearance and compassion for their weakness, their deficiency, and their errors, and with a spirit of genuine desire to purify, cultivate, and raise them to our level as far as we are able. This does not mean that we should abandon our higher horizons and lofty ideals, nor that we should flatter these people and praise their vices, nor that we should make them feel that we are higher in horizon than they. To reconcile these apparent contradictions, and to have enough breadth of heart for the effort that such reconciliation requires, this is true greatness. When we reach a certain level of capability, we feel that it does not shame us to seek the help of others, even of those less capable than ourselves. Nor does it detract from our value that the assistance of others has helped us to reach what we have reached. Yet before that, we try to do everything by ourselves. We look down on seeking others' aid or joining their efforts to ours, and we even feel it demeaning that people should know that such help has had a share in our ascent to the summit. We do all this when our trust in ourselves is not yet great, when in truth we are weak in one respect or another. When we are truly strong, none of this will trouble us. It is the child who tries to push away the hand that supports him as he staggers along the road. Once we attain a certain level of power, we shall welcome the help of others with a spirit of gratitude and joy. Gratitude for the assistance offered to us, and joy that there are others who believe in what we believe in, and so share with us the effort and the responsibility. Joy in this consonance of feeling is the sacred, untrammeled joy. If, however, we come to monopolize our ideas and convictions, if we grow angry when others appropriate them for themselves, if we strive to insist on ascribing them to ourselves and to proclaim others' use of them as an assault upon what is ours, then we are doing all this only because our faith in these ideas and convictions is not very great, because they have not sprung from our depths as though without our own will, because they are not themselves dearer to us than our own selves. Pure joy is the natural fruit of seeing our ideas and convictions become the property of others while we are still alive. The mere thought that, even after we depart from the face of this earth, they will remain as nourishment and refreshment for others should suffice to fill our hearts with contentment, happiness, and peace. Only merchants are anxious about the commercial rights to their wares, lest others exploit them and deprive them of their profit. As for thinkers and people of conviction, all their happiness lies in people sharing their ideas and beliefs and believing in them so deeply that they ascribe them to themselves, not to their first originators. They do not imagine themselves to be the owners of these ideas and convictions. They are but simple transmitters and interpreters of them. They feel that the spring from which they draw is not of their own creation, nor fashioned by their own hands. All their sacred joy is but the fruit of their certainty that they are in touch with that original spring. The distance is indeed vast, vast between understanding truths and inwardly realizing them. The first is learning, the second is knowledge. In the first, we deal with words and abstract meanings, or with partial experiments and fragmentary results. In the second, we deal with living responses and comprehensive perceptions. In the first, information reaches us from outside our own selves and remains in our minds as something set apart and distinct. In the second, truths well up from our depths. The same blood flows through them as flows through our veins and our sinews. They are in harmony with our own heartbeat. In the first, there are compartments and headings. A compartment for science, beneath it many a heading. A compartment for religion, beneath it the headings of its chapters and sections. A compartment for art, beneath it the headings of its schools and directions. In the second, there is one single energy connected with the great cosmic energy. There is a running stream that leads back to the original spring. We stand in urgent need of specialists in every branch of human knowledge, those who turn their laboratories and offices into hermitages and cloisters, devoting their lives to the branch they have chosen, not only with a sense of sacrifice, but with a sense of delight as well. The delight of a worshipper who offers his soul to his God, rejoicing. Yet even so, we must realize that these are not the ones who direct life or choose the path for humanity. The pioneers have always been, and will always be, the possessors of extraordinary spiritual energies. They it is who bear the sacred torch, in whose heat all the particles of knowledge melt together, and in whose light the road of the journey stands revealed, supplied with all these particulars, strong with this provision, as it presses on towards the lofty distant goal. These pioneers are the ones who perceive with their inner sight that all-embracing unity which reveals itself in diverse forms in science, art, belief and action. Thus they belittle none of these and exalt none of them above its proper level. It is only the small of soul who imagine a contradiction between these manifold powers, and so fight science in the name of religion, or religion in the name of science, who despise art in the name of work, or the driving vitality of life in the name of a mystical creed. They apprehend each of these powers in isolation from the group of other powers that all flow from one spring, from that mighty power which dominates this existence. But the great pioneers perceive that unity, because they are connected with that original spring, and draw from it. They are few in human history, indeed rare, but they suffice. For the power that watches over this universe is the one who shapes them and sends them forth at the appointed, needed time. Absolute surrender to belief in miracles and unknown forces is dangerous, for it leads to superstition and turns life into a vast illusion. Yet absolute denial of this belief is no less dangerous, for it closes off all inlets of the unknown and rejects every unseen power for no other reason than that at some stage it may lie beyond the reach of our human understanding. By doing so, it diminishes this universe in scope and in energy and in worth as well, and confines it within the limits of the known, which, when measured against the magnitude of the cosmos, is up to this moment very, very small. Human life on this earth is a chain, either of incapacity to grasp cosmic forces, or, if you will, of growing capacity to grasp these forces as he outgrows his early limitations and takes one step after another on his long road. Our ability, from time to time, to perceive some power of the universe which, until but a moment ago, was unknown to us and beyond our understanding, ought to be enough to open our inner sight to the truth that there are other forces which we have not yet perceived, simply because we are still in the stage of experiment. Respect for the human mind itself demands that we allow for the unknown in our lives, not in order to hand over our affairs to it, as those do who cling to illusion and superstition, but in order that we may feel the true greatness of this universe, and know our own worth within its vast structure. And this ought indeed to open for the human spirit many powers of knowing and of feeling the bonds which link us with the cosmos from within us. Bonds that are surely greater and deeper than anything we have thus far grasped with our minds, as is shown by the fact that day by day we are still unveiling new unknowns, and that still we live on. There are people in our time who see in the acknowledgement of God's absolute greatness a diminishing of man's value and a belittling of his place in existence, as though God and man were two rivals contending for greatness and power in this universe. I feel that the more we deepen our sense of God's absolute greatness, the more we ourselves grow in greatness, for we are the work of a great God. Those who imagine that they exalt themselves by lowering, in their fancy, their God, or by denying him, are but limited beings who cannot see beyond the low, near horizon. They think that man sought refuge in God in an age of weakness and impotence, but that now he has become so strong that he has no need of God, as though weakness opened the inner eye and power sealed it. Man is more than worthy to deepen his sense of God's absolute greatness as his own power grows, for he is worthy of recognizing the source of this power in proportion as his capacity for comprehension increases. Believers in God's absolute greatness do not find within themselves any sense of lowness or weakness. On the contrary, they find within themselves dignity and strength because they lean upon the supreme power that dominates this existence. They know that the field of their own greatness is on this earth and among these people. It does not collide with God's absolute greatness in this universe. They possess in their deep faith a reserve of greatness and dignity, which those do not find who puff themselves up like a balloon, so that the swollen tumour hides from their eyes all the horizons of existence. At times, servitude disguises itself in the garments of freedom and appears as liberation from all restraints, liberation from custom and tradition, liberation from the duties of being human in this life. Yet there is a fundamental difference between liberation from the shackles of humiliation, oppression and weakness, and liberation from the restraints and responsibilities of our humanity. The first means true freedom. The second means the abandonment of the very constituents that made man a man and released him from the heavy fetters of animality. It is a masked freedom, for in reality it is submission and servitude to animal impulses, those impulses against which humanity has spent its long age struggling in order to free itself from their choking chains into the open air of human freedom. Why is mankind ashamed to reveal its necessities? Because by innate nature it feels that rising above these necessities is the first component of being human, that liberation from their shackles is freedom, and that overcoming the urgings of flesh and blood and the fears of weakness and humiliation, both alike, confirms the meaning of our humanity. I am not of those who believe in principles abstracted from persons, for what is a principle without a fervent, impelling conviction? And how can such a fervent, impelling conviction exist anywhere but in the heart of a human being? Principles and ideas in themselves, without a driving conviction, are mere empty words, or at best dead words. What gives them life is the warmth of faith, radiating from a human heart. Others will never believe in a principle or an idea that has sprouted in a cold mind rather than in a glowing heart. Believe in your idea first. Believe in it to the point of burning conviction. Only then will others come to believe in it. Otherwise it will remain a mere verbal formulation devoid of spirit and life. No idea lives that has not incarnated itself in the soul of a human being and become a living being, moving upon the face of the earth in the form of a human. Likewise, no person truly exists in this field whose heart is not inhabited by an idea in which he believes with warmth and sincerity. To separate the idea from the person is like separating soul from body or meaning from word. At times an impossible operation, and at times an operation that carries within it the sense of dissolution and annihilation. Every idea that has lived has fed on a human heart. Ideas that have not been nourished with this sacred food are born dead and have not pushed humanity forward by even a single span. It is hard for me to imagine how we might reach a noble end by using a base means. A noble end lives only in the heart of a noble person. How, then, could such a heart bear to employ a base means? How could it even be guided to using such a means? If, to reach a verdant shore, we wade through a pool of mire, we are bound to arrive at a soiled shore. The slime of the road will leave its traces upon our feet and upon the places our feet touch. So it is when we use a base means. The defilement will cling to our souls and leave its traces both in those souls and in the end we have reached. In the reckoning of the spirit, the means is part of the end. In the realm of the spirit, such distinctions and divisions do not exist. Human feeling, once it has truly sensed a noble end, cannot endure the use of a base means. Indeed, by its very nature, it will not even find its way to such a means. The end justifies the means? That is the great wisdom of the West, for the West lives in its mind, and in the mind such divisions and distinctions between means and ends can exist. Through experience, I have come to know that nothing in this life equals that delicate spiritual joy which we feel when we can bring consolation or contentment, trust or hope or happiness into the souls of others. It is a wondrous heavenly delight belonging to nothing of this earth. It is the response of the pure celestial element in our nature. It seeks no outward recompense, for its reward is complete within itself. There is another matter which some people thrust into this realm, though it does not belong to it at all, the matter of others' gratitude. I will not deny the intrinsic beauty of such gratitude, nor the great joy it brings to those who give, but all that is something else. Our concern here is with the joy that arises, because goodness finds an outward, immediate echo in others' souls. And this joy has a value different from that other, because it is not of the same nature as that other joy, which we feel purely in the very moment when we can bring consolation or contentment, trust or hope or happiness into the souls of others. That is the pure, unmixed joy that wells up from within our own selves and returns to them without need of any elements outside us. It bears its recompense complete within it, because its recompense is nothing but itself. I am no longer terrified of death, even if it were to come this very moment. I have taken much from this life. I mean, I have given. At times it is difficult to distinguish between taking and giving, for in the realm of the spirit they have a single meaning. Every time I gave, I took. I do not mean that anyone gave me anything in return. I mean that I took the very thing I gave, for my joy in what I gave was no less than the joy of those who received. I am no longer terrified of death, even if it were to come this very moment. I have worked as much as I was able to work. There are many things I would like to do were my life to be extended, but regret does not consume my heart if I cannot do them. Others will undertake them. They will not die if they are fit to live on. I am at peace, confident that the providence which watches over this universe will not let a sound idea die. I am no longer terrified of death, even if it were to come this very moment. I have tried to be as good as I could. As for my mistakes and errors, I'm sorry for them. I leave their affair to God and hope for His mercy and His forgiveness. As for His punishment, I'm not anxious about it, for I'm certain that it is true punishment and just recompense. I have grown accustomed to bearing the consequences of my deeds, good or evil, so it does not distress me to meet the reward for what I have done amiss when the reckoning is set up.